OpenAI released Operator, an AI agent that can literally take control of a web browser and perform tasks for you. So, this means Operator can actually do things like book your flight, order your groceries, make restaurant reservations, and even complete online purchases. So here's how this works. Operator gets its own dedicated browser window where it can click, type, and scroll just like a human would. It combines GPT-4o's ability to understand what it's looking at with advanced reasoning capabilities that help it navigate websites and solve problems. If it makes a mistake or gets stuck, it can try to correct itself or hand control back over to you or ask you follow up questions for logins and things like that if it needs them. And you can take control of it at any time. So, this tool is powered by what OpenAI calls their computer using agent model, CUA, which is trained to interact with regular website interfaces rather than requiring special programming connection, meaning this can work with virtually any website right out of the box. Now, initially, Operator is only available to US users who subscribe to ChatGPT's $200 a month pro plan. Now, as part of this release, the company is implementing strict safety measures. Operator will ask for user approval before completing any significant actions like submitting an order or sending an email. When it does have sensitive things like involving payments or login credentials, it hands control back to you to input that information or give it that information to go input. And it also tries to include defenses against malicious websites and monitors for suspicious behavior. Now, OpenAI does plan to make Operator available to more users through its Plus, Team, and Enterprise tiers. They eventually want to integrate it directly into ChatGPT as well. So, Paul, let's maybe first talk about the first impressions of Operator now that people are out in the world trying to use it for different things. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so just contextually, we'll put the links in the show notes. But one thing to note is this is we've known this technology was coming for a long time. So back in this February of 23, I think February March 23, we talked about World of Bits, which is a research paper from OpenAI back in 2017, led by Andrej Karpathy, where they tried to give computer use to these agents. They tried to enable the AI to use a keyboard and mouse, but it was too early. And eventually the transformers and GPTs, or large language models, led to the ability for OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and others to revisit this idea of computers. We got it in fall of last year, fall of 24. Anthropic was the first to market with like a research preview of this. We talked about Google integrating it into Chrome on a recent episode. And now we have OpenAI's. OpenAI's seems like it's probably the most advanced of the previews of this technology that we've gotten. Um, I would say my general perception at the moment is this is definitely more of like an experimentation thing. I've definitely seen some people online really impressed with it and that have got it to do actual things. But more than anything, I think it's really a preview of what may be coming. And I don't know that the average person would find this incredibly useful. Like you might,
Mm.
play around with it. It's fun. It's kind of cool that it does these things. But I don't know that most people would get this technology and think this just changed my life. So a few reactions. Vedant Misra, who we've talked about recently on the podcast, works at Google DeepMind, was at OpenAI previously. He said, I just used Operator for the first time. It nailed my test requests. If even I can barely process the fact that this is already a real product, surely the general population has no idea what is about to happen. So, again, sort of like a hint at this is really impressive that they're able to do this. Most people won't comprehend how impressive this actually is, and more is coming. Allie Miller, who we've talked about on the show many times, she said and these are tweets that I'm quoting here. It's not AGI, but it's a step toward more autonomous systems. The Operator UI is sleeker than Anthropic Claude computer use. I like that it punts it back to the user for logins and payments, as you had said, Mike, but navigation and typing is slow. I had several times where the website detected it was an AI and blocked it. OpenAI may be
Mm.
using Operator to inform their AI strategy, maybe the first AI agent that's really accessible to non-developers. Um, Ethan Malik said, implications of Operator number one, general purpose web agents aren't there yet, but seem more workable than expected. Operator is quite good. Number two, companies aren't thinking enough about how to market to preference of agents. I actually saw a couple examples, Mike, where like people's websites didn't work in the Operator
I saw that
browser.
too.
Yeah. So it's like that thing about, as a marketer, as like a business leader, starting to think about what happens if this stuff starts working in 6 months and people actually start using this technology. And then Malik said security is going to get very weird very fast. Um, and then the last one, so right as it came out, I think I tweeted like anxious to see what Karpathy has to say. So again, Andres Karpathy led the team trying to do this 8 years ago at OpenAI, went back to OpenAI in 2023 to work on this again. So it's like there's no one more qualified to assess Operator than Karpathy. And he did end up tweeting later that day after it came out. And he said, people on my timeline are saying 2025 is the year of agents. Personally, I think 2025 to 2035 is the decade of agents. I feel a huge amount of work across the board to make it actually work is still needed, but it should work, he says in quotes. Today, Operator can find you lunch on DoorDash or check a hotel, etc. Sometimes and maybe, meaning it doesn't really always work. Tomorrow, you'll spin up organizations of operators for long running tasks of your choice. For example, running a whole company, which remember is level 5 of OpenAI's levels of AI, is basically organizations. You could be a kind of CEO monitoring 10 of them at once, maybe dropping into the trenches sometimes to unblock something, and things will get pretty interesting. So that was my overall take. I have not personally used it yet. I do start to think about these ramifications around search. So as these agents start working more and more, start doing more of the web work for us, what does that mean to search business, SEO? What does it mean to corporate websites? Are we building websites specifically for agent experiences? Like, do you start building these versions that's really just for the agent to use? Implications on marketing, sales, customer service. These things aren't being talked about yet enough because most people can't even wrap their minds around what this could mean in 12 to 18 months as they start becoming more reliable. I know you have a pro license. Like, have you played around with Operator at all? Have you had any experiences with it?
Yeah, I mean, I played with it a very small amount to start, and I'll actually get into in a second why that's the case. I only did kind of these cursory, looking for flights or like making restaurant reservations. I kind of felt along the lines of Ethan Malik that I realized it was very limited and slow and not totally autonomous because I had to keep, jumping in. But it worked surprisingly well. Like it worked better than ChatGPT tasks did out of the
Okay.
box, which I still haven't explored that much because it
Yeah.
keeps breaking. Maybe
Yep.
I'm using it wrong, but it worked fine for things like booking a table on OpenTable, but I didn't push the limits by any means. And a reason for that, I within seconds ran into the problem that I don't know how we solve, which is I can think of 100 extremely high value experiments to run, and 99 of them require information or access to accounts that I'm either not, I definitely should not be doing as part of our work,
Yeah.
or personally don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah. Actually, now you're saying that that introduces a whole new element of generative AI policies in companies. Like
Yeah.
if you haven't addressed computer use in your generative AI policies,
Mm,
back to the
it's a
drawing
good
board.
point.
You're going to have to, integrate that. This is only available in those pro licenses. Like you can't get this in team and enterprise accounts yet in ChatGPT. But again, we know that employees are using personal accounts to do business work. So yeah, you may need to, address that because the risks are huge here. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
OpenAI isn't even aware of all the ways this could go wrong and people could get access to data and things like that. Um, so I don't know, like, I don't know how you feel about this, Mike. I see this probably being a novelty for consumers, like
Yeah.
really advanced people. If you follow a bunch of people on Twitter, you may see like the 1% or the 1/10 of 1% who make it seem like this is changing the world and everything's going to change in the next 6 to 12 months. The game has changed, like those tweets you see from people. Like it hasn't. Like this is not transforming your business life or your personal life yet. I think enterprise adoption is going to be insanely slow because
Mhm.
the risks the IT would have to solve for are so massive and so many are completely unknown that there's no way they're going to allow this kind of thing to be used within enterprises. So I don't know. I think it's, like, really interesting technology. I think if you step back and you know what you're looking at, you can start to see 6, 12, 18 months out how this really does start to affect things. But so much of it is gonna be underlying, and it's gonna be like websites and the marketing and sales processes, and then it's gonna start to get domain specific. Like, what does this mean for lawyers? What does it mean for accountants when it can reliably fill out forms and do tax forms, like things like
Yep.
that, where you start to look at industry by industry and say, okay, this might actually affect this industry way sooner than maybe this industry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more based on kind of limited tests with it. I do think this is a really good example of what you mentioned in your talks a lot, which is look, we can't predict exactly what's going to happen when, but we know the broad strokes of what's coming. Like
Yeah.
agents are going to be a thing. And if I'm a marketer, especially, I had like 12 questions immediately about like, well, what if someone used an agent to fill out a form 1,000 times on our website?
Yep.
Like that would be a huge pain. That would like derail us for like a week to figure it out.
Yep.
Stuff like that could be worth starting to game out, even if we're not there yet.
And that's one of the exciting things for me with like our Marketing AI Institute community and now kind of the emerging Smarter X community is we're seeing these domain experts who are starting to pull on the threads specific to their industry. So doing what like Mike and I do, where we're trying to like drink from the fire hose and then make that fire hose make sense every Tuesday for people. That's like one area here. If you're a lawyer or if you're an accountant or an HR professional or a CEO or a consultant or an SEO expert, like there are careers to be made figuring all this out when you zoom into a specific department or industry or career path. Mike and I aren't going to be the ones to figure that out. Like we can guide you on like the foundational knowledge, but this is the opportunity I see for so many people and we see it happening in our community where you get these people who are experts on the legal side or the finance side and they're now going and saying, "Okay, I'm going to be the one to figure this out in my company or in my industry." And there's tremendous opportunities to do that, to become like a thought leader in your own company, in your industry that understands the implications of AI for specific professions and companies.